I just, his career of decades in public service as a senator and as a very successful vice president and as a phenomenally successful president, there is no single thing that he has done in that entire career that is a greater or more consequential act of service and sacrifice to this country.
Girl, the American public were getting boring every night with your MSNBC show. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Welcome back. Today, we're diving straight into Anna Kasparian's explosive takedown that's rattling both her followers and haters. In a no-holds-barred rant, she torches Rachel Maddow and the liberal media for pushing fear and losing touch with real Americans. She doesn't spare Biden either, tearing into his presidency while demanding media accountability. Anna's blunt shift is rocking the young Turks and lighting up the internet. So let's unpack her firestorm and what it signals for the future of progressive voices.
Is there a world in which Democrats should have a backup plan for Joe Biden?
A backup plan?
If he needed to be replaced on the ticket. If we're 3 months out and Trump's still beating him in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina.
I mean, I think the backup plan is run a better campaign. Biden hasn't been disqualified from running for the presidency by anything having to do with any of his performance. It's just that it's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah.
And so I think the backup plan is fight harder. Yeah. The backup plan is make sure you win the Senate. The backup plan is people should volunteer earlier and do more and give more money and do all of those things.
That was MSNBC host Rachel Maddow back in June of 2024. And keep that in mind when you consider that Semaphore spoke to key media figures across digital, print, and legacy media, Republicans and Democrats, to discuss the things that they got wrong in 2024. And judging by that video you just watched, Rachel Maddow did get some things wrong. The question is, did she learn a damn thing about it? Well, rather than citing her real mistakes and terrible predictions, she actually ended up blaming her audience. So here's her statement to Semaphore. She said, "I thought people would be more unnerved by J.D. Vance, less the cat lady thing and more the Americans are going to have to get over the dictator phobia Mencius Moldbug thing." Now, if you're unfamiliar with Mencius Moldbug, that's a pseudonym for Curtis Yarvin, who Vance has followed for years. And Curtis Yarvin is someone who's against liberal democracy and is in favor of a monarchy, though he seems to have a tough time defending that position. Cenk Uygur actually interviewed him about it, and it was embarrassing if you ask me. But on October 1st, Gallup released the following poll comparing voter ratings between Tim Walz, who was the VP pick for Kamala Harris, and J.D. Vance. And yeah, I mean, she is right that people didn't seem to fear J.D. Vance as much as she was hoping for. So at that point in time, in October of 2024, less than half of registered voters nationally had a positive view of Tim Walz or J.D. Vance. A combined 46% rate Walz as either an excellent or pretty good choice versus 41% for J.D. Vance. And despite Walz's slight lead on this measure, the two were equally likely to be rated as poor choices. Just under 4 in 10 voters see each as such. So she is right that people didn't buy into the fear mongering about J.D. Vance as much as she hoped for, but to kind of pivot to what she believes her audience got wrong, or the Democratic voters got wrong, or voters in general got wrong, instead of taking ownership of the things she got wrong, is kind of amazing.
Anna Kasparian just fired a major shot at Rachel Maddow, blasting her as completely detached from the struggles real Americans face. While people grapple with crushing gas and grocery prices, Maddow, Kasparian says, stays locked in her bubble, obsessing over Trump and J.D. Vance like they're comic book villains threatening democracy. Instead of taking accountability for her misfires during the 2024 election, Maddow reportedly blamed viewers for not listening. Kasparian didn't stop there. She slammed the Democrats' media game plan too, calling out their blind loyalty to Biden and their refusal to face his vulnerability head-on. She ripped Maddow's fear tactics as outdated and tone-deaf, arguing that voters care less about political boogeymen and more about what's hitting their wallets. Her takedown exposes a deepening fracture in progressive media, one where elite panic is losing touch with public reality.
To the average person, get over dictatorophobia, Mencius Moldbug thing. What are you talking about? So, look, I interviewed Curtis Yarderman, as Anna pointed out, so I know what she's talking about. The average person doesn't. And nobody knows about Curtis Yarwood. And yeah, he's comical and ridiculous, and that's why I'm worried about J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, and that's why I voted against them. But the average guy doesn't know that Curtis Yarwood is in favor of a monarchy, which is actually a dictatorship, which is what J.D. Vance was, the fact that J.D. Vance is in favor of that is problematic, etc. So, one, out of touch with what actual human beings are going through. They're worried about gas prices and food prices. They're not worried about Mencius mold bug, who they've never heard of. And secondly, and even more importantly, she's saying, damn it, the fear-mongering didn't work.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly right. I mean, it's amazing that, look, I'm always amazed at the, I guess, allergic reaction to any self-reflection at all. It's okay to admit that you got things wrong. It's actually admirable when people admit, especially people in media who are supposed to be, sharing accurate information. It's okay to say, look, I got that wrong. In fact, we're going to give you examples of people who actually did take ownership, and I give them a lot of credit for that. It builds credibility when you're willing to admit when you've gotten something wrong. And by the way, remember, this is what she said when Joe Biden ultimately ended up dropping out of the presidential race.
Just thinking about the president right now, what a man, what a patriot. What an act of selfless devotion to your country. And he has been a phenomenal president. He ended the presidency of Donald Trump at one disastrous term. And he did it while being decent and civil and honorable and normal and occasionally boring at a time when boring was absolutely what we needed. And I just, his career of decades in public service as a senator and as a very successful vice president and as a phenomenally successful president, there is no single thing that he has done in that entire career that is a greater or more consequential act of service and sacrifice to this country.
Girl, the American public were getting boring every night with your MSNBC show. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Go outside and talk to real people. She is so out of touch with ordinary people. It is amazing.
Anna Kasparian isn't pulling punches. She's torching both Joe Biden and Donald Trump in a bold rejection of mainstream liberal narratives. She paints Biden as mentally checked out, propped up by handlers, while media allies like Rachel Maddow heap spinning delusional praise. Meanwhile, Kasparian mocks Maddow's doom-filled portrayals of Trump and J.D. Vance, arguing that the left's wild exaggerations make Trump seem more interesting than he really is. Her blunt realism has rattled the progressive echo chamber, even clashing with TYT co-host Stenkviger as she pivots toward sharper, common-sense critiques. With the left losing voters to empty fear-mongering, Kasparian's raw commentary signals a major shift, one demanding truth over tribalism and calling out a liberal media more obsessed with fantasy villains than real-world issues. It's a wake-up call, and not everyone on the left is ready for it.
I want to juxtapose Rachel Maddow to Mehdi Hasan, because Mehdi Hasan was asked the same question, and I like the way that he handled it. So he said, quote, 2024 was the year I posted my wrongest ever tweet. I think Republicans will regret setting the bar so low for Biden and helping spread the distorted image of him as a guy who is totally out of it, suffering from dementia, no grip on reality, no ability to speak. A very low bar for him tonight. A few hours later, he was promising to beat Medicare. A few weeks later, he had quit the race. Like many others, I was completely, utterly, totally, embarrassingly wrong about Biden's lack of mental competence, but I remain right about Trump's. So he didn't pull any punches, and he was very, self-reflective, critical of something that he had gotten wrong, and I commend him for that. I don't want to say that it's big of him to say that, because I think this should just be standard operating procedure. It's okay. We are human and we are going to get things wrong. Again, it shows that you are a credible person when you're willing to take ownership of your mistakes and recalibrate. And so hopefully that's what happens, that Mehdi Hassan doesn't just take what, the mainstream media says about Democratic politicians at face value. You shouldn't take anything that anyone says about any politician at face value. You should always be skeptical and dig a little deeper to see if there's more information, especially if people are trusting you for information and news.
Yeah, let me just say quickly there. So Mehdi's statement is great because that's what, taking ownership looks like. So God bless on that. But I think I'm going to stop calling Trump dumb, and I've done it thousands of times, right? Because maybe my bar is too high or something. Because I called him dumb, but he actually did an effective strategy with the McDonald's and the garbage truck and running as a populist, fake or otherwise, reaching out to his base more, going to online media. These are all correct strategies. And meanwhile, Rachel Maddow and Mehdi Hassan are they might be a lot of things, but they're nowhere near dumb. Perfectly, really smart people, both of them. And they both couldn't see. And Rachel, I think, couldn't see because her financial incentives were lined up with not seeing. But Mehdi is a super smart guy, and he couldn't see it either, that Biden was way too old, was obviously had dementia. They couldn't see so many things about this election that I thought were patently obvious. And so, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. People are blinded by the bubbles they're in. And then if you try to pop those bubbles, then they get furious at you. But this whole party has to turn around, and we've got to go in an economically populist direction. Otherwise, they're going to be saying the same exact things after the next presidential election.
I want to give myself credit for something, because one of the other things that Trump did that I gave him credit for when everyone else was clowning on him.
The liberal media's fear-fueled spin is unraveling fast as their collapsing narratives about Trump and conservatives face growing public backlash. Claims tying Trump to a national abortion ban or shadowy conspiracies like Project 2025 have been flatly denied by Trump himself, exposing the media's addiction to hype over truth. Voters aren't buying it. They're focused on real economic struggles, not dystopian fantasies.